Welcome to this Winning Pitch broadcast. I have as a guest Bruce Wiseman, who's a friend of mine and was heavily involved with a company called On Target Research that I'm pretty certain he owns, who did all the market research for my aviation tax company called Aero and Marine Tax Professionals. In fact, he helped me even name that company, because originally the name of the company was Legally Avoid Sales Tax, because I operated from the viewpoint that the name should identify exactly what you do. And I discovered that was a little too aggressive for my conservative audience. But anyway, I digress. Here's Bruce Wiseman, who's going to tell you the story of his many hats and his many lives. So Bruce, the stage is yours.
All right. Well, one of the things I wanted to talk about today, Tom, was something I have been alerting my readers to. And when I say readers, I publish a financial newsletter called Strategic Financial Intelligence, strategicfinancialintelligence.com. Bit of a mouthful, but that's the name. It focuses primarily on cryptocurrencies and precious metals. But of late, given a good amount of research I've done, I have found that the central banks of the planet faster than most people realize in converting bank accounts to digital currency, meaning there is a war on cash on the planet. Cash is going away. It'll be a relic. This is no conspiracy theory. It's happening as we speak. The senior bank on planet Earth is called the Bank for International Settlements. It is based in Basel, Switzerland. Swiss law doesn't affect it. Its employees are immune from prosecution. They have their own militia on the property. This is a world unto itself. And this bank, which I call the godfather of the global financial mafia, is the central banker's central bank. So the central banks of the world, the Fed, the Bank of Canada, the Bank of Italy, the Bank of Japan, etc., are members of this bank and fly in periodically. They have board meetings. But the Bank for International Settlements, or the BIS, issues orders to the central banks. The central banks, as I'm sure your listeners know or are aware of, basically control the economy of a country by virtue of adjusting interest rates and the amount of money that's in circulation. They're, a very powerful segment of a society. So they did a survey towards the end of last year. The Bank for International Settlements did a survey of their central banks. And they found that 80% of them were either testing or piloting, or in some case had implemented digital currencies replacing cash. They're called CBDCs, central bank digital currencies. This isn't some conspiracy theory. This is happening now all over the planet, and it's happening very rapidly. Cash is going away. There is an effort by these banks to convert your bank account to zeros and ones. The leading economic power on the planet that is doing this, or who has the lead in this, is the PRC, the People's Republic of China. They have 4 states now where they are using nothing but CBDCs, central bank currencies. They're just operating on aid with digital currencies, and China intends to roll this out quickly. The governor of the PBOC, the People's Bank of China, has said that he's hinted that they're going to roll it out at the Chinese Olympics in 2022. So this is a big deal. And while the newsletter I do get into, and we can talk about key cryptocurrencies and precious metals and so forth. This agenda, which I repeat is moving forward very quickly, is something that I'm kind of alerting people to, because if you think this through a little bit, most people haven't really given it a great deal of thought. Okay, what happens if I no longer have cash in my bank account? I have just digital zeros and ones. The central bank then can follow every zero and every one, Tom. So let me make up a story. A guy's getting up too many times a night, to having to go to the bathroom. He goes to the doctor. The doctor gives him some, some meds for his prostate. Now, the doctor then, having been paid for the prescription, takes the money. He buys some meds from his pharmaceutical company. The pharmaceutical company takes the money, sends it to their lobbyist in Washington. The lobbyist in Washington retains the services of an escort who shepherds a congressman to a dinner. The escort takes the money, goes to her plastic surgeon and gets some new body parts. The plastic surgeon gives the money to his coke dealer. Now, that may not be too far of an exaggeration. The point is that the government can now, the central bank now, can follow every single move of that money when it goes from the patient to the doctor, to big pharma, to the lobbyist, to the hooker, to the cosmetic surgeon, and to the coke dealer. The Fourth Amendment will be a doormat. And this is something coming quickly, and it's why I have been writing about it a good deal, along with making recommendations on cryptos and some precious metals.
So is it going to replace Bitcoin and that kind of stuff, or is it Bitcoin?
No, it's a very good question, and it's important that we differentiate that. So you have, in the cryptocurrency world, you have Bitcoin, which came out in 2009 and was the only cryptocurrency on the planet for 2 or 3 years, and then its progeny started. And today, Tom, there are 7,000 cryptocurrencies. Wow. 7,000. There's about $1/3 trillion in market cap in cryptos. Bitcoin remains the godfather. Probably most people, or many people, have probably heard of Ethereum, which is a cryptocurrency that forwards a service called blockchain, which facilitates the transfer of money and or goods around the planet very quickly. So that whole world of cryptocurrencies is decentralized, meaning there is no central authority. It's decentralized, meaning you can't subpoena the board of Congress to testify. There is none. It's just people trading, and okay. It's the same with almost all of the cryptos. The difference between that and what I just talked about is that the digital currencies that will be going into your bank account are centralized, meaning the central bank will create them and put them into your bank account. Those are controlled by the central bank. The decentralized cryptocurrencies are basically investment vehicles today. And within that world of cryptocurrencies, there are those that are just backed by agreement and emotion. Bitcoin is one of those. There's nothing behind Bitcoin. There's no service, there's no product. It was originally developed to be a global digital currency, but it really hasn't fulfilled that role. It has simply become an investment vehicle. Now, there certainly are vendors around the planet who take Bitcoin, and you can buy stuff with Bitcoin, but its primary role is just, it's like buying gold and silver.
Okay.
except there's nothing behind Bitcoin. Many of the other cryptocurrencies, there is a product or a service. So let's see, there's one crypto called Ripple, which, for those of us that are old enough, remember this word from this from college in the 60s. College in the 60s. But Ripple is a service that is provided to international banks that facilitates the transfer of money around the planet very quickly. They have 200 banks that are customers, and so its currency is based on the success. So in the cryptocurrency space, there are cryptos that have nothing behind them really but agreement, or there are cryptos that provide a service like Ripple. But they are decentralized. The centralized digital currencies that will be put into your bank account by a central bank are centralized. They're controlled by a central authority. The U.S. Federal Reserve Bank, had taken a very kind of soft pedaling attitude towards cryptos. Jerome Powell, the chairman of the Feds, had kind of been, I don't know, we'll see kind of thing. And then I ran across a speech by the president of the Cleveland Fed. There are 12 central banks in the Federal Reserve System. This happened to be the Cleveland Federal Reserve Bank, and the president of that Federal Reserve Bank is a woman whose name escapes me, Louise something. She gives a speech, Tom, to a convention. I forget what the convention was, Chamber of Commerce, something like that. And she's promoting, this is the president of one of the Fed banks, she's promoting that the Federal Reserve bypass the banking system entirely, and that accounts should be set up with the central bank as an individual. So you, Tom Alston, set up your account, or Arrow and Taxman sets up an account with the Federal Reserve Bank, and they put digits into your account, and you're now a customer of the the Federal Reserve Bank, and they can do whatever they want. They can monitor, everything that you do. You walk into the liquor store, you say, let me buy a 6-pack of Michelob, and you give the guy the card, and the note comes back. Sorry, Tom, too much beer this month. You can't buy that. I mean, that kind of 1984 stuff is coming, and so part of the purpose of the newsletter, to get back to where I started, is to keep people informed as to the progress of this movement, because it is moving very, very quickly. A year, maybe two ago, regulators, legislators, you mentioned Bitcoin or some kind of cryptocurrency, there was like, it's a bunch of, BS. Don't pay attention, blah, blah, blah. A few weeks ago, the Office of the Comptroller of Currency of the United States issued a letter going, banks may take cryptocurrencies and have accounts for them, hold them. So this is a massive shift from it's junk to, okay, if you're a bank, you have the right to establish an account for and hold cryptocurrencies for Tom or Bruce or John. That's one thing I have been communicating a good deal about. Okay. I also make recommendations relative to cryptos. People, it's becoming a major investment area. Tom, there are 40 million Americans that own, which is, what is that? I don't know, 12% of the population or something. So one of the things I do is I kind of keep track of them, not as many as, there's 7,000 of them. But the main ones have market caps of $1 billion or more. This is not child's play. This is big money. And people invest in them every day. So that's, I repeat something I've been writing about. I promote the newsletter. So one, because I'm selling the newsletter, but two, it's an important communication line that most people, you have to be like some techie from Silicon Valley to kind of be into that world. But most of my friends don't have. It's like, no, this is coming. It's coming. Cash will be gone in our lifetime. Gone.
Really? Why?
Well, because they can't track it. The example I gave you of the guy going to the doctor's office and blah, 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 they can't. You can pull cash out of your bank, stick it under your mattress. They don't know. They don't know what you're going to do with it. Government, you know this as well or better than I do. Governments want to control. Yeah. And with cash, they can't do that. They can't do it with gold or silver either, at least at this point.
So it kind of eliminates Pablo Escobar's biggest problem of what to do with all the cash, right? It's because he's not going to have any. But how are you going to buy? How are you going to buy a gram of whatever the drug of the week is from your dealer on the corner with this money? What are they going to do? Give them a tax ID?
It's one of the things that governments, can complain about. Well, the drug dealers are using cryptos, and we should ban them and so forth. Well, they were using cash. It's really, if you're a drug dealer, you're a drug dealer. What you're using to buy and sell the stuff with is not really the problem. The problem is the fact that the La M, right, the Mexican mafia, is control in this state. They control the drug traffic. Drug dealers are using it, but so are ordinary citizens. How some drug addict buys a gram of cocaine from somebody on the corner, I'm going to have to leave that to the drug addict. But I think in time, and I'm not sure exactly how the government's going to go, but I think they'll make cash illegal. At some point up the road, owning Ben Franklin's is going to be illegal. Wow. At the very least, vendors won't be taking them. So they'll be kind of useless in terms of your ability to spend them. I think there will be, Tom, a black market in cash. Hey, you got an Andy Jackson, But this is coming. This is 1984 and 2020.
So, by way of background story, what got you so interested in this subject to the point that you felt you needed to create this newsletter to communicate what you know?
Yeah, it's a good question. It's a little bit of a long story. My academic background is history, American history. So I taught American history as in another life as a young man at San Jose State, Western American history and California history. And when I left that world, I had a master's degree at San Jose State, and I was going to go to Berkeley and get my PhD. And my old man, who was in the furniture and appliance business, he had a chain of furniture stores in Northern California. He came down to San Jose. I had a baby and, living on beans and rice. And he said, I'm going to retire. Come on up and take over the store. And I was a liberal historian, I'm like, but he dangled the money in front of me. One of the worst decisions I ever made. It wound up okay, but I went, okay, I'm thinking 3 clubs, golf. So I went to work for him for 5 years. I ran the credit department, so I knew how to get people finance. The guy comes in to buy at that time, Motorola TV, and he's had some trouble with his credit. How do you place the contract? That whole world.
Hmm.
And after a few years, I just couldn't take that anymore. And so I went look. I was teaching at night at Oak Tech, the birthplace of the Black Panthers. Bobby Seale, Eldridge Cleaver. I mean, this is in the late '60s. All those guys. But anyway, at night I would go down to Oak Tech, to Oakland, and I would teach. The classroom was virtually all African Americans. They're trying to get a high school diploma, and so I was teaching history at night, and then so I started looking for looking for a teaching job at a I don't know, junior college or a college, and I had a graduate degree with honors, straight A's in graduate school, and I knew credit, so I went and talked to a couple of banks in the San Francisco Bay Area. Boy, they stamped me up just really fast. So I spent some years as a banker in the San Francisco Bay Area, and then I got interested then in that world, and I started reading about the World Bank, the International Monetary Fund, organizations that were formed at the end of the Second World War to facilitate planetary finance, restructure planetary finance, set the dollar up as the number one currency on the planet, and those organizations, which had good, turned out to be global predators today. The product of the World Bank today is an indebted nation. That's what they're after. Get in debt. And I read some of the agreements between the World Bank and countries to whom they were lending. It's sitting the hair up on the back of your neck. They get access to your education system, your tax system, your agricultural system. So anyway, so I started getting into the dark side of global finance, and I later moved to Los Angeles. I founded a business management company with a partner, and business management in LA and New York is kind of a niche industry. We handle the business and financial affairs of entertainment people, actors, actresses, producers, directors, working actors, or direct people in the entertainment industry. They have business managers, and the money comes to the business manager. You pay the bills, do the taxes, oversee the lines to their bankers, stockbrokers, mortgage people. And so I was the CEO of that company for a couple of decades, and then I started writing. And I retired from the business management company. My partner bought me out, and I started writing fiction and then nonfiction, and now I'm writing the newsletter.
So
So it's
is there much difference between fiction and nonfiction? I had to ask you that.
Well, there is a lot of difference. I mean, fiction is, number one, a lot more fun to write.
Yeah,
I've got
I agree with that.
You write, but it's a lot more fun. I've got a detective series with the private eye that's the protagonist. He's got an office in the Claremont, and so I enjoy that. I've got the fourth novel in my computer here. Fiction is nonfiction, rather, is takes research and digging in and so forth. Not quite as much fun to write, but it sells a hell of a lot better.
Yeah. Now I've read, as far as I know, all of your fiction, and the way it's researched, I'm not sure it's fiction. I just
Well,
that's kind of a compliment to the way that you write and your style and the way that you research that stuff. But I find out a lot of things that are really going on when I read certain authors' fiction. That's why I maybe asked you the question: is there really any difference?
well, you make a very good point. All of my Tom McKenna books, Tom McKenna is the protagonist, have a factual nonfiction base. The first book, called Mind Games, was about the out-of-body psychic spy program that the CIA ran out of Stanford in the 70s and 80s. That actually happened. I mean, that organization existed. I had researched it earlier for some other work, and so that was kind of the basis. And then I spun a fictional tale around that. The second book was based on a Nazi general named Hans Kammler, who was doing some of the Nazi research as the Russians were coming in from the east and the Allies from the west. And Kammler took the blueprints of all the Nazi research and disappeared. And nobody's been able to find them. You know, I talked to the Nazi hunters in Argentina and so forth. Anyway, so the second novel is based on that. So you're right. I mean, I do use a factual basis for the story. Is based on La M.A., the Mexican Mafia, and their control of the drug situation in California. And I'll leave it at that.
All right. So I had, unfortunately, he's passed, a very good friend. His name was Roderick Thorpe, who wrote the book called Nothing Lasts Forever, which is the foundation of the whole Die Hard series. He also wrote the book called The Detective, which he wrote the book for Frank Sinatra to be the star in the movie. And he wrote a book about, it's called The Green River Killer, I think, about someone was killing all these prostitutes up in the Seattle Northwest area. And he originally went to write the story as nonfiction, but when they figured out who it was that was really doing it, he was threatened, and so he had to release it as fiction. It was the only way he could get the book out. So again, that's the basis of my asking you from your viewpoint. It's just I pay attention to certain things, and I go, oh, I wonder. It's like I'm a big fan of Lee Child's series. God, I'm gonna drop the name.
Reacher.
Jack Reacher. And I found out some really interesting stuff that I know he researched about the way that they were tracking the flood of drugs from the pharmaceutical companies into the illegal market. So I always wondered how they did that. So now I know. So, you know, and Tom Clancy kind of did that too, so much so that he was eventually hired by the CIA, or he was originally working for the CIA. Either way, it makes a good story. So that's what I was asking you, and you answered it. So what are you up to these days besides writing conspiracy theory, telling us all that we're about to be doubly screwed by our doubly screwed over corrupt government that everybody knows, but what the hell are you going to do about it? What can someone do about it?
Well, I'll take that and step into my used car salesman identity for a moment.
Okay.
Buy the newsletter, because I'm tracking this. I am tracking this. To be, and the newsletter will talk about these things, but one, if you don't have some precious metals, get some precious metals. Have some gold and if you don't have gold and silver, get some. I'm a bigger fan of silver than gold, because if the doo-doo hits the fan, gold and silver have been money for 5,000 years, and to own some. I mean, besides the fact that it's doing very handsomely right now, and in my opinion, will continue to do so. I think we're at the beginning of a 2-3 year bull market in precious metals. I called gold last year. I said when it breaks $1,400 an ounce, it's going to head north. It broke $1,400 today. It's at $1,900. Silver was a little later. I said when it breaks $19 an ounce, it's going to run. And silver today is 24 or something. I can see that on a graph. So one, I would own some precious metals, more silver than gold, because things get rough, and you're talking about even your friend, the drug dealer. If you've got an ounce of silver, which is today maybe $30, an ounce of gold's over 1,900. So you have a hard time buying gas and groceries with a $1,900 ounce of gold, whereas silver is much more useful. Right. So one, I would buy some precious metals. Two, and this may sound a little out there for some people, but I recommend it anyway, stick your toe into the cryptocurrency market. This world is there. It's growing. It's becoming a major part of the economy. Cryptos are not going away. If you'd asked me that question maybe 3 years ago, I go, yeah, no, they're here to stay. There's a third of a trillion.
What are the guys in Basel going to do about the cryptocurrencies? Because those assholes want to control everything. So how are they going to push those guys, the cryptocurrency guys, out? Or are the cryptocurrency guys going to be the cash of the black market?
Well, their first step is what I was talking about in the first part of the show, which is, okay, good, we're going to get into the digital world. Okay. That way we can control everything. If you're going to buy a crypto, we can tell anything that you buy. So one, they're going to get control of people's bank accounts. What they're going to do about, let's use Bitcoin. I think when push comes to shove, they will try to make those things illegal. Countries tried to do that maybe a year and a half ago. The countries were this stuff is bad for people. They don't know what they're doing. And they started putting out regulations. And this industry sector has grown so fast that governments have basically turned around. I gave you an office that could control our currency going, okay, well, banks can take these accounts. So I don't know the full answer to that. I mean, if I sit in their situation, and if I've got control of the bank accounts of most people, then it becomes a PR job to attack the cryptocurrencies and go, these are illegal.
Okay. Or they could, now, like Bitcoin, could someone buy that company or organization, or it doesn't have an identity? It's not a fixed thing.
Couldn't buy it. There's nothing about, what are you going to do? There's no organization, there's no corporation, there's no board of directors, there's no anything. You could currency. And, you have to dig into, I don't know if we'll ever find out. The guy that invented Bitcoin and the technology that transports Bitcoin, which is called blockchain, was a guy named Satoshi Nakamoto. And he developed this stuff in 2008. He develops it. He sends out a white paper. Bitcoin starts to grow a little bit. And then the guy gives the white paper to a friend of his, and he disappears. Nobody knows who Satoshi Nakamoto is. Nobody knows. My opinion, I underline opinion, is it was Satoshi is the NSA. The National Security Administration. So, we'll see. I mean, it's the biggest mystery in the entire digital world. But there is you can't buy Bitcoin. Now, some of the companies that deliver services, like Ripple, it was the example I talked about earlier, I guess you could buy Ripple because there's a company there. But that world is very amorphous. One of the cryptos, I do a radio show out of Los Angeles once a week, and was talking yesterday. I do it on Thursdays.
So,
about
let me stop you right there.
Yeah, sure.
Reference this show. Here's your chance to promote it. How do people find this radio show? How do they listen to what you're doing? How do they find your newsletter? Give people exact directions so that this effectively becomes a marketing call for you.
They know they know what they're doing. Well, let me repeat. The name of the newsletter is Strategic Financial Intelligence, .com, and you get the newsletter. Retail was $2.49 during this virus baloney. I dropped the price to 99 bucks, $2 a week, you know, and it's, modesty aside, it's pretty good advice. Now, subscribers to the newsletter also weekly get a transcription of the radio show. And I don't know if you're doing, this. We send the radio show, the verbal radio show, to a transcription service. They then convert it to text, and then I send that text to my newsletter subscribers, and I send an audio file of the radio show to the newsletter subscribers. So the newsletter is kind of the basis of it.
And that's the hub.
That is the hub. You can listen to it live. You can the broadcast network here in LA is called crncharlie.com, CRN Talk. You can, in your smartphone, if you do pound 250, and when the voice comes up, go CRN, then you can download the app and you can listen to the show anywhere.
Okay.
Kind of cool.
Well done. So I'm sorry for interrupting you. Go back to
That's right.
If you can remember.
Yeah, what the hell was I saying? Oh, yeah, I remember. So, I mean, I was talking about it yesterday, which is what it's, you know, close enough to the present I can remember. But I was talking about a cryptocurrency called Monero. And Monero is on the list of cryptos, and they list them by market cap, how big they are.
Okay.
Bitcoin at the top, Ethereum. Monero is number 15. I think their market cap is about $2 billion. And for people that are interested, if you're interested in that side of things, there's a site called coinmarketcap.com. Coinmarketcap.com. It's got all the cryptos listed, how big they are, what they did in the last 24 hours, what they did in the last week. You can access graphs. It's very helpful if you're into that world. And they list the cryptos by the size of their market cap. So Monero is number 15, and it's got a market cap, I think it's around $2 billion. So the reason I bring it up is Monero is the most encrypted of all the cryptocurrencies. You cannot break into that thing. Governments around the world have offered hundreds of thousands of dollars to anyone who can break into Monero. Nobody has done it yet. So if encrypted cryptocurrency, Monero is your guy there. Monero is selling for today. It's around $127. But all of those cryptocurrencies, tell people that are thinking of maybe putting their toe into that water, you can put whatever you want in there. I mean, Bitcoin sells for $11,500 now for one Bitcoin. But you got an extra couple $100, you can go up, open an account, and buy $200 worth of Bitcoin, or $200 worth of Ripple, or $200 worth of Monero. You don't have to buy the price of the coin.
Okay.
So, you know, again, I think it makes great sense, which gets back to your question a few minutes ago, to become familiar with that world. You know, go open an account. I mean, the biggest cryptocurrencies are traded on exchanges. Just like if you were going to buy General Motors, your broker would go to the New York Stock Exchange and buy it. Cryptocurrencies have their own exchanges. So the exchanges have certain cryptos, and you go there, you open an account just like it's a stock brokerage account, and you give them your credit card or your bank account, and they, you can buy. The biggest one in the country in the U.S. is Coinbase. So they're in San Francisco, coinbase.com. But there are tons of these exchanges. There's lots of them. But Coinbase is pretty user-friendly now, and it's big. And for lack of another one, I would suggest that you can open an account and stick your toe into the water. You get familiar with it, because digital currency is becoming more and more a part of the investment world, and I think more and more of the economy. And I think it's important for people to, get a little bit familiar with it. So it's not like, I don't know, you know, get a little bit of confront in.
Yep. Yep. If you want to not misunderstand something, you got to look into it. You got to confront it. You got to look into it. You got to study it and make your own decisions about the information. I agree with you totally there, brother. So, a couple of questions, and the first one is, if you could go back and tell how old were you when you graduated from Stanford or the school?
San Jose, 21.
If you could tell that person something, what advice would you give them?
That's a good question. I've never been asked that question before. Well, I think in terms of a career choice, I just would have eliminated the 5 years I worked for my old man. I'd have just gone. He's a good salesman, and but it was unpleasant. I mean, you have to see where I was. I mean, I was a liberal historian. You know what I mean? I was into that whole side of the world, and now I go from that, and I'm selling Hispanics 17-inch Motorola TVs, on credit. It was just it was a major shift. I did learn, and it did get me into the financial world, but the 5 years I spent there was not great fun. And I don't know, if I go back as a people say, would you change anything in your life? Yeah, I would. I have two wonderful grown children from my first wife. I was married to her for 12 years. But met my current wife. We just celebrated our 42nd anniversary, and the woman is a saint. I would probably skip the keep the kids, and I don't know. But I think I would have, rather than I love studying history and I love teaching it, and I you're up there in Sacramento. I mean, California history is built around that city. John Sutter and the mill and yada, discovery of gold, Sutter's mill and stuff. But I probably would have, bypassed trying to be an academic and gone right into, the business world.
So I'm going to invert this question, and I've never done this before. What, and you're, I think you were born in what, 42 or 41?
It's close, 41. 2 days after Pearl Harbor.
Okay. So what message do you want to tell your 120-year-old self?
Well, that's a different game, I think you and I don't know if you can say you can edit this out if you need to, but you and I both know we've lived before and we'll live again.
Absolutely, and I'm not afraid to tell people I'm a Scientologist, so
and
I'm not going to edit it out.
Good. One of the things I think of now, I'll be 79 in a couple of weeks. I'll be 80 in a year. I'm still, I walk the hill. I live on the mountains. I walk the hill every day. I'm in great health. I expect to be around a while. That said, I get to thinking from time to time, okay, good. Next time I'm going to do blah. We were looking at, what the hell was it, on TV, some show that was showing this university. It was Pepperdine. And I've kind of pinpointed Pepperdine as, I like to, I'll do my college work at Pepperdine. It sits on the coast of Malibu. It's in Malibu for people that don't know. It's in Malibu. It's a beautiful campus, and you look out in the Pacific Oceans there. They have a good law school. So in terms of my 120-year-old self, I'm not sure I'll be around at 120, but I think, I'll definitely be back. But my thrust in life is to expose and handle evil. I don't
Got
want
it.
that to sound too Batmanish, but I am, focused, motivated to clean up corruption and so forth. I sit here and look at the politics today, Tom. I don't know what it's going to be like in 2040 or something. I mean, and I don't have to tell you, you live in Sacramento. The guy's a Looney Tune. He's a Looney Tune. I got friends. I don't know about you. I got friends. They're packing up. They're going. They're going to Texas. They're going to Arizona.
Or Florida.
Or Florida. Lots of them going to Florida. Um, but if we don't get control of this political system, Washington has become a zoo. It's a zoo. And I watched with horror the hearings on Judge Kavanaugh back however many months ago it was. It was disgraceful.
Mm-hmm.
It was a disgrace. And it doesn't matter what kind of, where you are on the partisan side of things. Here's a man being nominated to the Supreme Court, and the depth to which they attacked him was disgraceful. And the country's continuing to move. This is no original thought. The country's moving socialistic. This isn't news to anybody. I don't like it.
Yeah.
I like America. I like America like it was.
So did I.
And we both share a love of this country, and I think both of us just sharing emails at some of the insanity that's coming out of Washington. As you know, I tell your listeners, I mean, I worked, defeating psychiatric legislation in Washington for 20 years or so. And, I walked the halls of Congress, the House, the Senate, got some historic federal legislation passed. But that place is a zoo. One-on-one, most of the people up there are decent social personalities. You talk to them like we are. But once they're into the party, and the party wants this done or that done, their integrity goes out the window. And there are a few that hang on to it. Rand Paul, who I'm a fan of, hangs on to his integrity, as his dad did. But those kinds of people are few and far between. And we're still the greatest country, but it's we're in quicksand, dude. I don't know.
Yeah.
I don't know how,
Yeah, the graph is certainly in either an emergency or a danger condition, depending upon what longer period that you're looking at. And the formula that needs to be applied is apparent to well, not apparent, but it's available to everyone. But let's not go off on that subject, because I'll get in trouble, because I get real passionate about it.
We could go on for some time on that stuff.
So, last question for you. I thank you for your time. We're pushing up on an hour now. What do you want your legacy to be for this lifetime?
I've never really thought of that much. I don't know that I help people. I mean, I spent several decades, digging up, exposing, and dealing with bad actors. Let's call them bad actors. Okay. And this is, besides psychiatrists, who are one entire category of bad actors, kind of at the top of that ladder, but others as well. And I got some stuff done, which I'm proud of. It's just, I don't get too excited about it, only not to, self-invalidate, but there's so much more to do.
Yeah.
There's so much more to do. And particularly, and I know, we don't want to go off on this track, but on the political side of things, it's like, how do we get back to, how do we get back to where we belong?
I
To use
remember a
it.
discussion you or I are having probably exactly 4 years ago, and we were talking about the current resident of the White House and being worried about his tone level. And I've discovered that he is exactly the right tone level to be in that zoo, and it keeps calling people out. And I have such an admiration for a guy who's 74 years old and has the energy that he does to put up with that shit. I can't think of very many people on this planet ever who could tolerate the kind of abuse that he's had from people, including the media, making it really, really hard to do his job. And I got the pleasure of knowing a guy named Brad Parscale. Do you know Brad?
What's his last name?
Parscale. He's the guy that ran his campaign last time, and he's actually a digital
No,
marketing guy.
I don't know
And
him. No.
he told me that during the 2016-11 election, they spent $100 million on digital Facebook ads and stuff like that. In fact, Facebook recognized him as running the most effective Facebook campaign ever. And he told me that their budget for this election was $1 billion.
Oh,
It's just
well,
to be able to get in the market of raising people's consciousness to overcome the news. And it's like watching what they did to Kavanaugh, which was sleazy. Watching what they're doing to this Barrett and watching her handle it. I am so proud of that lady. The way that she's just kind of turned it around on them, and but I don't trust any Supreme Court justice, because if I applied my litmus test, they'd call me up and I'd tell them what to do, and that's not what the Supreme Court is for. But I think she's going to be a good one, and I don't care if she goes in there a little arrogant. And I look forward to some changes that need to be made to reverse this socialism trend, which I blame on myself, because in my lifetime I've allowed the schools to be taken over by the crooks and the criminals and the socialists and the communists, or whatever you want to call them. I pick a name, and I'm hoping that I voted for Trump for one reason, and that was to save the Supreme Court. And the fact that he's going to get 3 people in one 4-year term, it's like getting an extra scoop of ice cream on my cone. So I just, I wanted to go ahead.
No, I didn't. I thought you were done. I just say 3 great jurists.
Yeah, I think so. But they don't always decide things the way that I wish they did. And that's okay. That's their job. I want human beings to make decisions, not just listen to the Nancy Pelosi and Governor Gruesom's and the Chuck Schumers. I mean, those people are certifiably nuts. When I think about the lockdown thing and the control being put on, oh, don't worry about it. It's only going to go on for a couple of weeks. And it's been now 7 months. And anybody who thinks that they should apply an economic solution to a health problem is evil. You can't be that stupid. You have to do it on purpose, and there has to be an agenda behind it. I remember about a month ago, I'm getting on my social thing, but I want to take credit for this. About a month ago, when all the fires were going on up here, I said, you know what? I think they're being set. And people said, well, you're Tom. I'm always a conspiracy theorist. And then I realized they're starting to arrest people. And now you think the reason I thought about the thing about the fires is, what does the fire, the smoke do to a human body? It irritates your lungs, your nose, and your eyes. Aren't those COVID symptoms? Doesn't it increase the amount of people that are having the symptoms of COVID? And the last thing I'll say before I give you the closing is this. If masks really work, there will be no flu this season. That's my litmus test. I mean, I think the whole thing is bullshit. I think wearing masks is bullshit. I remember 10 years ago or 5 years ago when I used to watch people in Asia walking around with these masks. What the hell is that all about? Well, Governor Newsom found out a way to make something more important, or Tony Fauci, or some of those other morons. But anyway, I want to give you an opportunity to end this podcast with whatever you'd like to do.
Okay, I can't let your comments go
ahead.
unaddressed. Donald Trump, from time to time, should keep his mouth shut, or his Twitter shut down. But this man is the most productive president in American history. And I tell you that to go back and remind you. I mean, I've got a graduate degree with honors in American history. Nobody has been productive like this guy. That's one. Relative to this whole COVID bullshit, which is what it is, I would recommend your listeners to buy a book by Dr. Tom Cowan, C-O-W-A-N, called The Contagion Myth. It'll blow your mind. Among other things, he reveals that Louis Pasteur, in his diary, said germs can't transmit disease, and then said so on his deathbed confession. So the whole germ theory of virus theory of disease is baloney.
Bullshit.
It's bullshit. And what's being done to this planet is something we've never experienced before, and it is evil. It is evil. And we could talk about that some more. Relative to your listeners or your viewers, I'm extremely dedicated to finding good investments for people, both in terms of currencies, and I would encourage, a really good buy, just right out there. If people want a suggestion, Ethereum. I look at gold and silver mines. You get a lot more leverage when you buy these junior gold mining companies. As I said, gold's $1,900 an ounce, but you can buy, a gold mining stock for $1, and if it hits, you do handsomely. And I research this stuff and write about it every month. So, strategicfinancialintelligence.com. I hope I see some of your listeners on board.
Awesome. Well, that concludes this issue of the Winning Pitch broadcast. I want to personally thank my friend Bruce Wiseman for everything that he's ever done for me, including help me get my aviation tax business off the ground. I really appreciate this man. He does great things for the world. I want you to listen to what he says. Subscribe to his newsletter. Even if you don't think you understand it, get it and start being exposed to that information, because if nothing else, you need to start asking questions about what's going on this planet instead of just accepting the fact that we have to live inside our houses and we're not allowed to go outside. That's not okay with me. I never stopped going to work every day. I just refused it. So anyway, thanks, Bruce, again for your time. I'm glad we worked through most of the technical difficulties. There were some times during this that your signal dropped a little bit, and hopefully we can clean the sound up in the editing room. But thank you very much for giving your time. And if you want to come back, just ask.